Hey, what's going on, everybody? In this video, I'm going to be reviewing Smoke by Dan Vyleta, which I gave a 4 out of 5. It was dangerously close to getting a 3 out of 5, so I almost gave it like a soft 4, if you will. By the end of the book, it solidified that 4 out of 5 score, and we'll get into that. So Smoke is a dystopian novel that is set in an alternative Victorian England in the year 1899, where most of the population is afflicted with a disease called smoke. Disease, their words. And it happens in a part of, there's a gland in the liver that releases smoke, and smoke quite literally comes out of their body. Whenever they have an impure thought, or like they're lusting after somebody, or they're feeling violent towards, someone wronged them and they're feeling revenge. So whatever kind of emotion that they're feeling, that smoke that is released from their body will have a specific thickness and texture and scent to it, color. I don't know if I mentioned that, shade of color. And smoke is infectious. So if I was feeling murderous and there was somebody next to me and I was giving off that smoke that I wanted to kill that guy that's walking down the street there. If the guy next to me were to breathe my smoke in, it would start to affect his state of mind and start to get him feeling murderous. So most of the people in this book, believe that smoke is the incarnation of sin, and they send their children to certain schools to try to suppress their smoke, and like government and world leaders and royal houses, they don't smoke, and they have claimed that they are rightfully divinely chosen to rule over the world because they don't smoke and they don't let their emotions get the better of them, which is why there's a setting in the book, this alternative London, where it's one of the most dangerous places on earth to go to because there's constant smoke. It never ends, because if you're smoking and you're around someone who's smoking, you breathe their smoke in, and it releases your own smoke, and it's like this perpetually like the cycle never ends. So you have to be really careful where you go. The book follows our main character, Thomas Argyle, who is the son of a murderer and is sent to this school where he meets his best friend, Charlie, where they teach you how to suppress your smoke. And there's, interesting professor titles such as Professor Renfrew, who is the master of smoke and ethics. So they have titles like that where they're, they teach you how to become better people. Charlie is the son of one of the royal families, and they quickly become friends, and Thomas is kind of the troublemaker because he's like, well, it's in my blood, so I guess I can't really do anything about it. But the whole book takes a trajectory of at first trying to suppress their smoke, but then they get involved into a conspiracy of, well, maybe smoke isn't exactly what people say it is, and maybe it could benefit the world. So it turns from this dystopian novel into a revolutionary type of novel. It didn't quite give me that sense of desperation that a dystopian novel should. Say 1984, where you say the wrong thing to the wrong person and you could just get killed the next day and nobody would ever know that you ever existed. They delete your entire existence from, the record book, from history. So I didn't quite get that sense of it, although there were a lot of great dystopian elements where you could really feel that most of the population is suppressed. And they are told that they're dirt, basically, like you're no good. And they look down on people who smoke, especially the rich people who don't smoke, but a conspiracy comes into play why they don't smoke. So I'll just leave it at that. And it's not, there's a curtain that you have to pull back. And the reason why I almost gave it a 3 out of 5 was because there's a good section of the book, I would want to say probably, for anybody that's read it, probably around, I mean, it's a good portion, something like this, a good percentage of the book, it felt like it had an identity crisis, meaning it was dystopian at first, and then it kind of traversed into like almost like a mystery whodunit type of thing. And I think what this book struggles from was that not enough clues were given to us in a timely fashion. There were a lot of clues that the author thought were clues, in my opinion, but when you get to that giant section of the book where it felt like it was just like, okay, what's the point here? Like, where are we trying to get to? You know, I feel like he could have done a better job of revealing things a little neater and a little quicker, because the last 50 pages of the book were incredible and everything came together and pieced together. I'm like, okay, I get it now. So the ending of the book did save it from, I don't think it was ever really at risk of getting a 3. I don't think I've ever would have given it a 3, but I was going to give it a soft 4, meaning like it's a 4, but man, was it close to a 3. So the ending of the book definitely redeemed the whole chunk of the book that was kind of like, lost. So that was the biggest issue that I had with it. Although I'm going to put a challenge forward. I dare anybody to read the first 2 chapters of this book and not get hooked. Dan Vyleta really knows how to open a book up and create a setting and describe the characters and really immerse you in the stories that he's writing. So far, there's actually 2 books. I've obviously finished this one, and then there's the sequel called Soot, which takes place 10 years after the events of the first book. And same thing. The first couple chapters, chef's kiss. Man, does he really knows how to open a book and put you into the setting of where all these characters are. So there's smoke, and then Soot is kind of like, Soot actually plays a huge role later on in the book, which is like, everybody knows what soot is, but when it's almost like when you're done smoking, that leftover kind of just grittiness that you've got on your shirt or on your skin, So, eventually Thomas Argyle and Charlie Cooper, they get set on this path of a trajectory of figuring out where smoke came from. They run into our third main character, Livia, who is like another royal, like a equivalent of like a royal family, just like a really rich house that has a lot of influence in politics and just in the world because of how much money they have. So she's this really, well put together, doesn't want to smoke at all, and is embarrassed if a little just tendril of smoke comes out. And so all 3 of them befriend each other, and they go on this quest of like figuring out what the big deal is behind smoke. And then there's a main antagonist who is his name is Julius, and he's one of these guys who also went to the school, the smoke school. He's like the equivalent of like in college, what do you call it? Like a RN or something. He's kind of like he's not a teacher. He's still a student, but he kind of oversees the student population, and he doesn't smoke at all. Going back to that little secret that I mentioned earlier, not quite what it seems to be, but he's one of these guys who doesn't smoke, but loves the feeling of inhaling it and letting it completely take over his body. Because if you get enough smoke inhalation, you lose your sense of self and you let the smoke. It's almost like you're automatic at that point. You're not really controlling what your actions and what you're doing. So great opening for a book. The middle section is a little rocky. If anybody's read it, the whole part where they're like underground in the mine. I'm not going to give away any spoilers, but the whole underground mine section, like I understand why they were there, and that was kind of important to lead them to meet like the revolutionaries, but I feel like it could have been handled differently, and I don't know how to quite put my hands on it. But I don't know if you guys have ever seen this photo that I found. It was like a perfect representation of this book. You know that horse photo where it's like, I think the label was like, when you need to finish your test and or there's another one, I think, where the head part, like imagine this picture, but the head was really well done as well. And then like the middle's kind of empty. And then the end of the horse is it's really good. And I think the label was like, when you start off taking your test, like your essay, really good, but then you find out you've only got 15 minutes left. So you have to like rush through the end of it. And I kind of, that just made me think of that, of that book. I just have a couple of notes that I've got here just so I don't miss anything. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Can't believe I didn't mention this, but the book switches between third and first person. So it'll have a third person view of all the characters. And then typically it's like every other chapter, or you might have like 2 chapters of third person and then 1 chapter of first person. And typically that first person chapter is a recollection of the events you just read about, but seeing it through the eyes of characters in the room that are experiencing it. And it's not always the main characters. It's not always Charlie or Thomas or Livia. It could be a side person who you only meet for that one scene, and then and then you never hear about them again. So I really liked that. I enjoyed the third person more than the first person sections, but it is a really cool change of pace, and it's a really interesting way to not make you see the world in such a like so black and white, or like a narrow view of the world. You're getting other perspectives of people and what they're thinking of going through that. Same thing with Soot. The second book follows the same pattern. And what I also really like about this book is that there were a couple words that, a couple great words, like vocabulary words that I never heard of, that made me write it down. The first one was costermonger. It just sounded cool. I actually didn't even look that up, but I just wrote it down so I wouldn't forget it to whatever that meant. And then there's another word, thoroughfares. which means like a branching of paths. So you're going down like quite literally, you're going through a street and then it branches off into two paths. So you could take that literally, or you could take that, symbolically as well. Yeah, so I think that's everything that I've got to say about it. You really want to pick this up because as rough around the edges as some of it was, overall, it is one of the most unique types of stories that I've, or like unique concepts that I've come across. You typically dystopian has some kind of, like Fahrenheit 451, you're not allowed to read books, or Brave New World, they give you these pills to like make you happy or like suppress your emotions. And in 1984, it's all about controlling the image of the government and, history and stuff. Whereas this one, it's so unique because it almost feels like it would be supernatural, because obviously people don't smoke in real life, but they don't make it seem cheesy. Like it's, they don't make it, he makes it believable that this could, actually exist somewhere in the world. So if you're looking for a new type of book, I think there's a lot to like here. There's something for everybody to like here. And I'm about 50 or 60 pages into Soot, and man, he's improved upon everything, all the shortfalls that I mentioned in this one. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next book review video. See you later.